Hello and welcome everyone back to Bortnik's YouTube channel in English. My name is James Talberg and I'm here again with Ruslan Bortnik, political scientist, political expert, and the director of Ukrainian Institute of Politics. Ruslan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello, James. Thank you too.
Let's catch up with everything that is happening actually in the time right now in terms of the agreement that's supposed to be signed between Zelenskyy and Trump, between Ukraine and U.S. What is the latest update? I've heard that Zelenskyy is supposed to fly tomorrow to Washington.
Maybe even today, but I think there are still a lot of troubles with this agreement. It's not. It will not be easy not only to sign but also to fulfill this agreement, because Ukrainian government published the draft text of that agreement, and it looks like Ukraine made a decision to divide all this cooperation, possible Ukrainian-United States cooperation, in two ways, in two paths. The first agreement will be very general without any concrete amendments, doings, responsibilities and rights of the side, just a general will of the sides to cooperate together on the topic of Ukrainian natural resources. And this draft agreement, Ukrainian president is bringing to the United States. And the second part, the very heavy part, it will be a special additional agreement on the establishment of a special fund of investigation and restoration of Ukraine. And there, in that agreement, will be written the responsibilities and rights of the sides, the leverage of the incomes, and the level of control over this money and these assets, and so on. All practical things will be in that agreement, which is not ready, and which is Ukrainian president is not bringing to the United States just now. And moreover, it will be extremely difficult to fulfill these agreements because of many economical and political reasons. From economical side, of course, we can say that Ukraine has almost $15 trillion estimation of natural resources. But we need to remember that at least half of them are under the Russian control now. I'm going to show you a small map of territorial control over these resources and over the situation. It will be very clear from this map. And do you see map?
I can see the map, but can you zoom it in a little bit? Yeah, closer. Perfect. I think that's going to be easy. Yeah.
Okay. This brown part of Ukrainian lands, it's a Russian occupied lands. But these lands are very rich for natural resources. On this brown part lands, we have the bigger part of coal, we have a lot of titanium, lithium, and many other resources. In general estimation, now Russia is controlling from 50 till 70% of entire Ukrainian natural resources. So that's the problem. We are selling and we are making a deal on the resources which we are not controlling for nowadays, or a big part of which we are not controlling. The second problem will be that even if we are talking about the general estimation of 15 trillion of United States dollars, the part of rares from this general sum, not more than 10%. 10% it's rares. 90% it's just a coal. It's just ordinary metals. It's oil, gas, very spread resources. Even sand and even water is counted in that sum. We need to understand it. So if we are talking about rares, it's maybe 10%. Moreover, we have only 3 mines which are working with rares now. Because from the point of our businessmen, There was no any beneficial cost to work with other natural resources and natural mines because they needed a lot of money to develop it,
investments
and
for the infrastructure.
yes, and they were not beneficial from the point of view of international markets and so on. So this is only these problems which are on the top of this question. So I think to be honest, this agreement between Ukraine and United States will be more political than economical. It's agreement only not for about money. It's agreement about the public relations of the politicians, and it's agreement about the geopolitical presence. Because, as I understand, Donald Trump is trying to achieve at least few goals in this situation. He is trying, of course, to show himself better, in contrary on Joe Biden, which just spread American United States money and military equipment and so on. In this country, Donald Trump is trying to back some money. He is signing a very, very famous agreement on natural resources. It looks very good from public opinion, for public relation things. And the second is, I think it's a good approach to put boots on the ground. Because if you are controlling Ukrainian economical resources and infrastructure is also part of that agreement. We are talking about the seaports, we are talking about some energy enterprises. So if you are controlling infrastructure and natural resources, you are controlling the mass media and political system. So you are controlling the country. And without any security guarantees, without any strict responsibilities, you are controlling country. And if somebody will want to come to Ukraine, to Ukrainian economy, to Ukrainian restoration, for example, France, Great Britain, European Union, or China, or even Russia, everybody will be needed to talk with the United States at the first stage, because they will not be able to work in a big Ukrainian economy in such conditions.
But can you elaborate on that a little bit more? If that agreement is exclusively about the natural resources and the minerals in Ukraine, how come it's connected to cooperation inside Ukraine in general?
Well, what do you mean exactly?
I mean, like you're saying that China would need to deal with the United States if China will decide to invest in Ukraine. Russia will have to deal with the United States. Is that specifically in terms of natural resources, or it's in terms of the country in general? Like if China will decide to come.
Just a little play this game. Just imagine you are China, and you want to come to Ukraine to take part in restoration, but you need the natural resources, sand, rocks, and so on.
Oh, now I see.
Yeah. Moreover, you need to bring your equipment and your personnel to Ukraine through the seaports. So, moreover, you
Go ahead. You
sorry. Moreover, you need to have a polite political circumstances around you to work in Ukraine, and in all these stages will be USA. Moreover, there are a few articles in this agreement about avoiding cooperation with countries which are under the sanctions, and with countries which were against Ukraine during the war, and avoiding the cooperation with countries which are against the interest of the other side of the agreement.
I think there is still a need to make a little bit more clarity in all that situation. So I'm just going to start from the beginning. We have a potential agreement between United States and Ukraine about natural resources and the minerals. And for on the first layer, on a practical layer, 50 to 70% of those natural resources are not under the Ukrainian control. They are under the Russian control on the occupied territories. So that's one. Like the majority of the natural resources and the minerals, they're not controlled by Ukraine. The second is that whatever is left on the controlled Ukrainian land, as you've mentioned, is not profitable or not well profitable, because if it used to be
it wasn't profitable from the point of view of our businessmen,
from the Ukrainians
but
businessmen,
it's
yeah.
also a question of money, and it's also a question of technologies and question of markets. Maybe United States will bring to Ukraine its own money, technologies and markets, and it will be more beneficial than it was before.
And more profitable, but
yeah.
Like, so it's like oil, right? You have oil in Canada that the barrel cost, like to produce that oil to get it outside of the land, is probably $40 or $50, and then you sell it for 80. The profit is $30.
Yeah.
Versus in Saudi Arabia, I think it costs $10 to get the oil out of the ground, and then you sell it for the exact same 80. Right. So like from that perspective, we can say that the resources that are left under the controlled Ukrainian government are not profitable from the perspective. It's more expensive to get them out. So you sell them potentially for the same price, but it's more investments and it's more expensive to get them out. So that's the second perspective. That means that whoever is going to control those minerals and natural resources will have to invest a good amount of money to get any good significant profit out of it.
We have some calculations on the rares, some new mines. To develop some new mines on the rares, we need from 300 million United States dollars to kill the 3-5 billion United States dollars for developing of each new mine of rares.
So that's the first component. The second component is, I've lost the point when we start talking about the investments into the how much you need to invest to make money.
Because of me, I think.
Yeah, all good. Yeah. So
and the second point is political presence. United States is not going to give Ukraine security guarantees, official security guarantees.
I wanted to get to it.
But the United States is going to keep Ukraine in informal zone of influence and zone of control.
Yes, because of that agreement. So I'm just trying to make, like, we're making an agreement here between Ukraine and the United States that is partially meaningless because 50-70% of natural resources are under Russian control.
Partially, yeah, because some money may be taken from this agreement, of course. Some money may be earning from this agreement in any case.
I'm just trying to make a
of course,
point
it's
here.
not about the 15 trillion United States dollars and even a half or even the one third. It's about maybe 10%, 15% in the best scenario, I think.
I'm just trying to make a point here, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's a pretty meaningless agreement for Ukraine and for the United States, just because of the sum of the money and all this, like, you know, the investments into the infrastructure might never happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It might never happen. So I'm just trying to make a point here that
in general, this project may never start.
Exactly, right? So I'm just trying to make a point here that it's a very meaningless agreement from the practical perspective, from money perspective, because it may never happen, right? And everybody understands it. Ukraine understands that. United States understands it. And I guess my point is here, it's a meaningless agreement from the practical perspective, but you're putting on it a second layer that out of a meaningless agreement, United States is going to take control over Ukraine in terms of its restoration. And the restoration of Ukraine will definitely happen. That's an inevitable fact. And as you've mentioned, the United States will control that restoration process, and whoever will want to come into Ukraine and participate in that restoration will have to deal with the United States.
It will happen, of course. Again,
If it happens,
it will happen, of course. And you are right, but United States is not going to spend some money on Ukraine now, but they are willing to be a mediator in this process. They are willing to sell its presence in Ukraine to maybe other interested countries, other interested economical group. I think they are clear and understand it. And of course, it's PR, public relations for Trump in contrary with Joe Biden. It's also a very important question. But there are a lot of troubles because Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy is willing to achieve the security guarantees, trade security guarantees from United States. And at the same, there is no such a point in this agreement now. There is only an article that United States will support the achieving of Ukraine, the security guarantees from the third parties. And from other side, that Trump's position is also quite different from Zelensky's position if we are talking about the time of this money. Trump is saying that we are going to get back our money from Ukraine. We spent for Ukraine 350 billion United States dollars, and we are going to get back this money. But there is no such articles in this agreement also. These agreements suits only the money and earnings and benefits which sides may achieve in the future in the developing of new resources, new mines, and so on, so on. So I see a lot of contradictions between the sides, and there is a significant risk that only this draft agreement may be signed, because it's about nothing, and it's about general things. And the second agreement with very concrete points, with responsibilities, rights, and stacks of the side will not be signed. So it will be PR, so it will be boots on the ground, because it will be agreement, the national agreement, but without any practical fulfillment.
So to me, at this point, it looks like a lose-lose agreement between the United States and Ukraine, except PR.
It's like a PR agreement for both of the sides.
It's plain and pure, but in terms of the practical component, it's lose-lose. That's how it looks to me at this point. But is there a way to make that agreement a win-win for Ukraine and the United States from your perspective?
I don't know. I don't know exactly. But we need to understand that this agreement is also a part of future possible peaceful agreement with Ukraine, because I want to remind that Russia is also suggesting United States another agreement of rare earths and natural resources.
I wanted to get to that as well. Yeah.
Putin said that he is ready to cooperate with United States with developing Russian natural resources in Siberia, in Ural, even in Arctic, and of course in the Ukrainian occupied lands.
So that's what I wanted to ask you. I don't know if I mistranslated it for myself, but I was watching that video when a journalist was asking Putin questions, and one of the questions and one of the answers, or I think just Putin just brought it up by himself somehow. He have mentioned that, and again, this is if I'm correct with the translation, but he have said that he is okay or interested to cooperate with the United States on the minerals and natural resources that he's controlling right now in Ukraine, on the occupied territory in Ukraine. Is that correct? Like, what stands behind that?
And this agreement between Ukraine and the United States opening for United States ability to get resources on occupied lands also, because Ukraine let United States to do it. Russia is not against. Moreover, I saw the draft agreement, not the last, but one of the previous drafts of this agreement, when was written that on occupied lands, United States will achieve 66% of the natural resources, benefits from natural resources, not 50 like it is now for a nowadays agreement.
That just looks like a funny story. Isn't that legalizing the occupation?
A new geopolitics. It's a new geopolitics. We have no such many layers and words which are just covering this real geopolitics. We have a very bilateral or multilateral relations which are oriented only for benefits from these relations. In the time when the biggest country in the world are competing for the next industrial revolutions materials. We are talking about artificial intelligence. We are talking about many different things for which the biggest country needs very much these rares to develop. And so we have very straight, brutal, very goal-oriented geopolitics.
But if United States will cooperate with Russia on the natural resources that are under the Russian control in Ukraine, on the Ukrainian land, isn't that legalizing Russian occupation?
Maybe not, because, for example, United States cooperated with Soviet Union at the time of occupation from United States, the Baltic countries. It's just a cooperation. I want to emphasize one more thing important. We saw a very sharp discussion between Ukrainian and United States president last week, when we discussed it a few times in this vlog. And partially this discussion was also about this agreement. So if we are talking that this agreement have no any significant value from money science and so on, so why they had so sharp agreement?
That's a great
question, and I think it's because the public relations, both leaders wanted to look very powerful,
to look strong.
Yeah, but not only. There are a lot of rumors in Ukraine that these resources, Ukrainian resources, already was promised to Great Britain and France. And today, the official French representative said that we are also willing to achieve the Ukrainian resources, not only United States. So maybe the reason of this sharp discussion was that United States wanted the resources which were promised in other countries also.
To France and Great Britain. So how are they going to manage this whole thing? Will they include France and Britain inside that contract, or they're just going to drop France and United Kingdom?
I don't know. Theoretically, they may unite this agreement. They may come into this agreement, or otherwise they need to discuss with United States these questions and these distributions of the control over Ukrainian natural resources.
I've read that Zelenskyy said that he's willing to give up his presidency for NATO membership for Ukraine. What do you make of that?
I think it's a simple political rhetoric, because NATO membership for Ukraine for nowadays is unreal history. And moreover, Donald Trump said that Ukraine needs to forget about it. So I think it's a real story, and the Ukrainian president clearly understands it, and so he can make such statements without any
responsibility
about his future position.
And in terms of the election, we had a lot of discussions that United States is pushing Ukraine to get into the election, and I was also watching a lot of Ukrainian news and a lot of Ukrainian activity, and it looks like political parties are warming up and kind of like prepping for the election. Will we see election happening anytime soon?
I think these elections could happen in Ukraine very surprisingly. It will not be the result of some planned political process. And I think in the core of this, of the reasons of this for these elections, will be a political crisis which could be provoked by the agreement, peaceful agreement, for example, between Russia and the United States, or a military crisis. If the situation in the battlefield will be worsening very, very dramatically, I don't see that Ukrainian government is going to make elections. I don't see that they are preparing to take part in elections, presidential, parliamentary elections in Ukraine. But I think this year it may happen as a result of the crisis.
If the election will happen in a surprising way in Ukraine, will Zelensky participate in the election?
It depends on the conditions of that election. If it will be a part of compromises, peaceful compromises, maybe Zelensky will take part. If it will be a result of political crisis or military crisis, Zelensky may take part, but he will not take any chances to win that election. It extremely depends on the conditions for that elections.
Ruslan, thank you so much for your comments and the insights today.
Thank you too, friends, and don't forget to subscribe for our channel. Please write down your comments. We are lucky with James Talberg together to answer for them. Thank you.